everyone, welcome to this Age of Alchemy battle report, where today we are going to be playing a 100-point game which is between the Followers of Nature's Bounty and the Mysteries of the Dark. Now, the reason these have been chosen is because this side, the Mysteries of the Dark, of the 6 disciplines is my personal favourite, and the Followers of Nature's Bounty is my opponent's personal favourite. So we're going to play them off against each other. We're also going to roll for concoctions, unlike in the previous introductory ones where we just used one of each. So let's give you a quick overview of the models on each side. For the Followers of Nature's Bounty, we have an Alchemist with a staff, an Apprentice with a basic weapon, so you'll get to see their rules today. We have 2 Marksperson with bow and basic weapon. We have 2 Barbarians with basic weapon, and we have a Favoured pet, which is a dog on the end here. For the Mysteries of the Dark, we have an Alchemist with staff, a Skirmisher who has throwing weapons and basic weapon. We have an ex-soldier with great weapon, an assassin with 2 basic weapons, a local hero with basic weapon and bow, and then a Favoured pet, which is also a dog. Before we set up for the scenario, my opponent is first going to roll for her concoctions, see what she gets. Okay, and just touch that one there. We will put up on the screen the ones they have chosen from the 6 they've rolled. Now I'm going to roll for my concoctions. We'll also put up on the screen what ones I've chosen with my roll. And we are deployed. I have my Skirmisher over here, and then my Assassin and my dog. And then over here on this flank we have the ex-soldier, the Alchemist, and the local hero. For my opponent, they've decided to sort of evenly split their forces with a Marksperson, Apprentice and Barbarian on this side, and an Alchemist, Marksperson and Barbarian on this side, and then the dog is just there in the middle. In addition, we have placed 5 counters because today we are playing treasure hunt. So we have 1 here, 1 here, 1 back here, 1 over on this side, and then finally 1 over on this side here. So the rules for treasure hunt are: if a model ends or begins the movement phase in base contact with a piece of treasure that is not claimed, they can pick it up. They will keep a hold of it until they lose it, which they can do by being removed from the game. A model can only hold a maximum of 2 pieces, so at the most that's kind of what they're going to have. As you'll see throughout the game, we'll see models picking them up, dropping them, and then at the end of the game, it's whoever holds the most number of pieces of treasure. So start of turn 1, my opponent and I are going to roll for initiative. They get a 1, I get a 2, so I'll be going first, and they'll get a reaction token. End of turn 1 movement phase, there were no reactions from my opponent. I have moved my Skirmisher up here, followed up by my Assassin. My dog is over here and has picked up 1 of the bits of treasure. My Alchemist is over here, following on from my ex-soldier and local hero. And then round on this side, my opponent's Barbarian, Alchemist and Marksperson have all moved up. The dog has tried to move up towards this bit of treasure, and then the Barbarian, Apprentice and Marksperson have moved up here. For the start of my shooting, my local hero is going to try and take a shot at the Marksperson up here. He is just within 12. We've also checked. He is in the open because there's no side to this bit of the building here. So I have moved, and that's the only penalty, strangely enough. So it's going to be on a 4, which hits. And roll to see if I get a wound. No, I don't. It's fine. It was a 2. Next, and for my last bit of the shooting phase, I'm going to have my Alchemist use number 4, which is the white smoke bomb, and he's going to put it on a model within 6, so it's going to go on this guy, on 2+. I'll re-roll that. Yep, goes off. He gets to make a normal 6-inch move using that one, so I'm actually going to maneuver him around so that he's touching this. Now, even though he's touching the treasure, he won't be able to actually move it until the next move phase. So for the start of my opponent's shooting, they first are going to have this Marksperson target my local hero, no, not my local hero, my ex-soldier who moved up. They are definitely within 12, and we double checked as well, there's no cover here, so they're just going to be on movement penalty as well, making it a 4. No, unfortunately they missed. Next, my opponent's Marksperson is going to fire all the way over here at the Skirmisher. It is within 12 inches, however, it is move penalty and I'm getting hard cover from them firing over this wall here, so it will be on a 6 in this case. Let's see what they get. No, 2 again. Finally, for my opponent's last bit of shooting, they're going to have their Alchemist use the number 1, which is Crumble, and they're going to put that onto this wall here, which they're within 6 inches of. Now, first things first, we work out if anyone's in base contact, which my ex-soldier is. So on a 3+, they'll take a wound, which they do. And then once that's all been worked out, then we remove it because it is only a wall or obstacle. So in this case, it can actually be removed. At the start of the combat phase, after much back and forth and measuring and working things out, we realised that my local hero, no, my ex-soldier here, I'll never get them right, my ex-soldier here can charge over this wall and just get into base with the Barbarian. So my opponent is actually going to react, but not to move away, but to hop over this wall here, and then that way it puts them closer to potentially getting a treasure. Now, because of that, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to charge them like so. So they would have to go forward if they lost. Now, I'll take my wound with me, and then I'll roll my 1 attack with the great weapon, hitting on a 3 for an ex-soldier. Nope, that's a 1, so no hit from me. My opponent attacks back. It's a hit from them, damage 4, basic weapon Barbarian against resistance 4. And they get a wound on me, so I'm going to try and run away, which I do, and I'm going to actually back myself away 2 inches this way, like so, so that I can deny my opponent getting the treasure. Who rolls a 2, so they're going to see, probably beneficial if they actually head towards this one at this point, because I've kind of got this one over here. So 2 inches will get them just round to there. So that brings us to the end of turn 1. As it currently stands, I have 1 treasure, my opponent has 0. However, I'm the only one who's currently actually taken any wounds from that failed attack on the Barbarian. Stick with us as we will head into turn 2. Start of turn 2, we have no determination rolls to make, so it's straight into initiative. My opponent gets a 1 again, and I get a 4. So in that case, they get 1 reaction token again. Partway through the movement phase, my opponent has decided that before I move this ex-soldier, they are going to take a snapshot at them with this Marksperson. We've worked it out that because of the elevation downward angle, I will be getting hard cover from this. However, hard cover is the only penalty I'll be getting, so it'll be a 5 to hit. And my opponent rolls a 2 again. So end of the movement phase, we have my dog with his treasure is hiding back here. Then we have my Alchemist, ex-soldier and local hero have moved up here. My opponent's Barbarian has moved around here. The Alchemist moved up here. The Marksperson stayed still. Dog just moved in to grab this bit of treasure. And then my Assassin and Skirmisher have moved up over this way. And then over here we have the little cluster of the Apprentice, Marksperson and Barbarian. For the second turn in a row, because of how well I rolled at the start, I'm going to use another number 4, the White Smoke Bomb, and I'm going to throw that onto this heavily wounded ex-soldier over here. Let's see if it goes off. It does. So he's going to make a 6-inch move, which will get him to just here. For my next bit of shooting, or the next bit of the shooting phase, my local hero is going to go after my opponent's Alchemist. Now he's just outside of 4 inches, and my opponent is getting hard cover and he has moves, so we'll actually be on a 6 here. No, oh, same 2, my opponent keeps rolling. For my last bit of shooting, my Skirmisher is going to go after the Marksperson over here. Now, we've worked it out that he'll be hitting on a 4 once we factor in him being super close, but with the hard cover. What I'm actually going to do is, instead of throwing the knives one by one, I'm just going to do all 3 into him because they'll be hitting on 4s. Okay, so I only got 1 there, and then it will be a damage 3, resistance 3. It's a 3, so no, in this case, no wounds. Now that my shooting is done with, my opponent is first of all going to have their Marksperson fire their bow into my Skirmisher. They'll be hitting on a 3 because they're incredibly short range, but they did move, so those 2 will cancel each other out. And I think that's about the 5th I've rolled in a row, but there you go. After that rather disastrous display, my opponent is now going to have their Marksperson fire down at my local hero. We've worked out that he doesn't get cover from the angle they're at, but they have already snapshotted, so it will be a 4 to hit this time. Ooh, just 1 under. Oh well. For the last bit of the shooting phase, my opponent is going to use Call of the Wild from their Alchemist, and they're going to put it onto my Alchemist, because they can draw line of sight to them. They're going to roll 2 dice. On 5s and 6s, I take a wound for each 5 and 6 they roll. No, however, I do have to disengage as though I'd fled a combat, so I'm just going to pop myself... Actually, I'm just going to pop myself over here into this corner. For my first charge in the combat phase, it's actually going to be my ex-soldier is going to go over and charge into the dog here. Now, before we actually roll, I'm going to pick up 2 dice and I'm going to roll for my ex-soldier because I completely forgot his special rule. So on 6s, I'll be having some wounds back. I'll have a wound back, thank you very much. My opponent is making some interesting gestures, but that's what happens. We did their shield rules in a previous game, so this is fair. However, saying that, I now need to roll to hit the doggo, which is going to be on a 3 with the great weapon. It is just enough. It is damage 6 against resistance 2. So currently I'm getting a +4 to whatever I roll here. That's a 9, so that is 3 wounds, and that is, yeah, I'm really sorry, doggo, but you stood there. And whatever I roll, I'm actually just going to shift myself over here onto the treasure. After some further harsh words from my opponent, the local hero here is going to charge into the barbarian over here. He's actually going to go like so, to just go right in front of him. And he does have the treasure, so he's going to take it with him. And he's going to get 1 attack, which will hit on a 3 with a basic weapon. He does hit. It's damage 4, resistance 4, so that is a wound on the barbarian. So I'll just pop a wound counter on him. Then my opponent's going to roll. Barbarian hits on a 4. No, unfortunately he gets a 1, so he doesn't. So he's going to be running away on a 4 as well, which he does. So my opponent is just going to back him up a bit, which will be about where the dice is. And then I'm going to roll to see how far I go. I go 5. I'm going to use that 5 to go around here. I've just measured that up earlier in case, and I can just get myself around to here. There we go. Now, we've actually measured it up, and it turns out my assassin can now run just around here and just get behind the barbarian. It's a bit hard to see, but he can just make it like so and get tip to dip there. So he's going to attack with his 2 basic weapons, which will hit on 2s. I'm just going to roll it over here. So both of them hit. However, he is damage 3 against resistance 4, so he's only going to be wounding on 5s and 6s. So he doesn't actually get any wounds. My opponent's going to attack back with their 1 attack, which hits. It's damage 4 against resistance 3. Unfortunately, they don't wound either, and he will be running away on a 4 or more, which he does. In this instance, my opponent's going to have to decide if he wants to go backward or... No, I think he's actually wanting to go forward this way and go here, and then I'm going to roll next to my assassin. We'll say that's a 3. I'm not going to re-roll a 3 and try and jinx it. And I'm going to use that to actually go back over to here, like so. So my opponent has worked out that their Barbarian is going to charge around and into my assassin here, like so. Hopefully so they can shove them off of that barrel. That's why they're going to go in like that. They're going to roll their 1 attack, see if they hit, which they don't. I'm going to get my 2 attacks hitting on 2s, which both hit, and we're looking at 5s and 6s to wound. I get 1, so my opponent takes a wound. We'll just switch that out. And then now my opponent tries to run away on a 4 or more, which they don't do, so I get an extra round of free attacks. I'll bring it round, so that's 2 hits, looking at another 5 or 6 to get rid of him. No, I'll roll that again, be fair. No, okay, so my opponent gets a chance to run away again on a 4+, which he does. So in this case it'll be backing away, I'm guessing, yeah, I'm guessing that way. So like so, and then I'm actually just going to turn myself around like this, purely so I can just be on the treasure for the start of the next turn. Sorry, I'm doing my best not to laugh here, but for the last combat, my opponent has decided that their Marksperson is going to hop over here and is actually, we'll just shift the barrel around, and he's going to charge into my Skirmisher. Now he has 1 attack with a basic weapon, hitting on a 4, which doesn't. I have 1 attack hitting on a 3 with the basic weapon that I gave him. I also miss, so I have to run away on a 2+, which I do. So I'm going to use that to back myself away, like so, and take my little barrel with me. There we go. So we did do a quick roll there. My opponent got a 4, so they've just hopped their Marksperson up to here. However, we have come to the end of turn 2. Now, we've still, actually not a huge amount has happened. We've had a few wounded models here and there, but we will see how that goes into turn 3. Into turn 3, we once again are doing a wee bit of superstitious rolling. My opponent is asking that I roll first. I get a 4, just to see if they can roll a 6 and go first. I will be getting 2 reaction tokens. So we have come to the end of the movement. There was no reactions. We realised that I currently am in possession of every single treasure on the board with my Skirmisher, Dog, Assassin, Local Hero, yeah, that's right, finally, and Ex-Soldier over here. My opponent has done a bit of moving around to try and envelop me because they're going to need to at least get a few of these treasures off me. So I've discussed this over with my opponent. Their 1 bit of alchemy for this turn is going to be the number 5 Bounty of Life, and they're going to use that to take the 2 wounds off of their Barbarian. After that, my opponent has decided that both of their Markspersons, who are here and here, are actually going to fire into this model here. Now this one hasn't moved, but is over 4 inches. This one has moved, but is within 4 inches. So they'd actually both be hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s. My opponent is actually just going to roll for them now. We'll go with this guy first. Reroll that one, because a Marksperson. Okay, so that's a hit. Roll to wound. It'll be damage 3 against resistance 4. He takes a wound. That's good. And then this one up here is going to do the same. So he'll be hitting on a 3. He hits. Roll into wound. He doesn't wound, but he does hit. For the next bit of shooting, my local hero is going to fire at the Alchemist. It's within 4 inches. He hasn't moved and there's no cover, so it'd actually be hitting on a 2. He gets to re-roll. Throws the treasure all over the place, but he does hit. And he gets a wound. Pop that over there. For the final bit, I'm going to use one of my piercing stilettos, and I'm going to throw it into my opponent's Alchemist, who is within 9, on a 2+. Yep, they will just take a wound. So for their first charge, my opponent is going to have their Barbarian run around and into my local hero, like so. They have 1 attack, hitting on a 4, which does. Rolling to wound, damage 4, resistance 4. That's where my opponent's luck has gone, so I am removed from play. They now get to roll a dice and see where they go. So I'm guessing towards that barrel. My opponent has realised that this Barbarian here is, as we saw earlier with the throwing knives, is just out of range of this Skirmisher, but they're going to try their luck at getting to the other side of this obstacle and fighting the Assassin. Now if we work out where they're going, so 3 to there and 3 to there, it does actually get them just to the other side, which is close enough to count as fighting over that obstacle. So my opponent is going to roll for their attacks. They hit, I'm going to roll to wound. They wound, and that in this case is a critical. So I'm going to attack back with my 2 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 5s and 6s, 1 wound, and then I'm going to try and run away, which I don't in this case. My opponent gets another attack against me, which fails, and I am going to... Yep, that's me running away, so I'm going to head 2 inches back this way. Now my opponent could decide to just jump clean over the obstacle, or they can roll their d6, so I'm going to let them decide now. And they are going to hop over like so. To round off turn 3's combat phase, my Assassin is actually going to charge the Barbarian. I know he's on 1 wound and I know he's got the treasure, but I have a plan if this works. So I'm going to charge him like so, and then roll my 2 attacks into him. That's fine, both hit, and no wounds. My opponent gets 1 attack back, which doesn't hit, so they're going to have to run away, which they do. And then I'm going to roll my dice, and I get a 2, so unfortunately I actually end up not much better than where I was with my plan. So that is the end of the combat phase, and the end of turn 3, after quite a rather roundabout turn where my opponent has now had the opportunity to pick up a treasure and potentially pick up a couple more later on. We are going to go into turn 4 now to see what happens. So we're now on to turn 4, and there's still no determination rolls. We only lost 1 model each, but we are going to roll to see for the initiative. I get a 6. My opponent gets a 5, so I'll be going first, and they'll get a reaction token. I was just about to move my Assassin here, but my opponent's decided to make the most of the opportunity and fire before anything else happens. So they're going to roll to hit them. It will be just a 3. There's no cover, and it's within 12. So they hit, and they're going to roll to wound. And it is a wound, so that is them gone. So at the end of the movement phase, I have had my ex-soldier go back over here. My opponent's Markspersons stayed up here because they reacted. Their Alchemist is inside the building, but we're just putting them at the door to remind us. The Barbarian stayed here so that they could collect that, and they're staying on it. This Barbarian stayed still. This Marksperson dropped down and ran over, and this Apprentice popped up over here. My Skirmisher is still over here. My Alchemist has sort of shuffled around a bit over here. And then finally, my dog is hiding at the back over here with their treasure. For the first bit of shooting, my Skirmisher here is in 4-inch range of that Barbarian, so he's going to throw his knives into him. I'm going to do them all at once because the chance of me getting rid of him is not that high, but we'll see. However, because he is within 4 inches, it's going to be on 2s. Good. For my Alchemy, my Alchemist over here is going to use their piercing stiletto. I have 2 of them, now have none of them. And they're going to go through this building and to this Barbarian over here, which they can see through the window. So I'm going to roll a dice. And yep, they take a wound. So I'll pop them up to 2. For my opponent's bit of shooting, they're going to have both this Marksperson who has already reacted, And this Marksperson down here who has moved, now they're both out with 4 inches, but within 12, and they've both done something in the movement phase. So they're actually both going to be hitting on 4s. My opponent is going to roll for each one. Actually, no, they're going to roll for them both at the same time. So be hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s. Okay, both hit, and then rolling to wound will be on damage 3, resistance 3. Roll that one. Okay, so I take a wound. Oops. There we go. To finish off the shooting phase, my opponent is going to have their Apprentice use the number 2 Entangle, which goes off on a 3+. It does, so that model is also now entangled. We'll leave that 2 next to it to remind us. Seeing as all my models are either out of range, or, in this guy's case, entangled, my opponent, we're going to actually just go straight into my opponent's charges. And the first one is the Barbarian, who's going to charge straight at... Now we're going to pop these out the way for a second. Just going to charge straight on in. 1 attack, hitting on a 4. Nope, I'm going to retaliate, hitting on a 3 with my basic weapon. I do. And 5 or 6, because it's 3 against 4. No, I do back away. Even though I'm entangled, I still need to back away. And that is going to get me right up in this corner here. I'm guessing they're going to go this way to try and block me. And yes, they are. Next, my opponent's Apprentice is going to charge up this way against the wall, so we will be going at the same time, but they will get to attack me. So it's going to be 1 attack from them hitting on a 3. Okay, I'm rolling to wound. No, not enough, unfortunately. I will retaliate, 1 on a 3, which hits, and which doesn't wound. And I do back away from combat on that 6. However, because of where I'm stood, I actually can't go anywhere with 2 inches, so my opponent is going to have to roll and just... Okay, so they're just going to move slightly around behind me like so. That is us at the end of turn 4. As you can see, it's kind of gone a bit against me, but I've still got hold of most of the treasure, so we'll have to see how that goes. We are now about to go into turn 5. Start of turn 5, I actually do have to take determination. Okay, that's fine, I rolled a 5, thankfully, I am okay. Turn 5 initiative, I'll roll first again, and I get a 4, my opponent gets a 5, so I'll be going first, and I will be getting a reaction token. End of the movement phase, I've not reacted, so we have... Dog is still here, my Alchemist has moved up to here to support the Skirmisher, whereas the Apprentice, Barbarian have moved round on him. The Marksperson and Barbarian have moved up over here. The Alchemist has stayed put in her place. The Marksperson has shuffled himself along to here. And finally, my ex-soldier is over here in the corner. For my opponent's shooting, first of all, we have this Marksperson over here. He's just at 12 inches of the Skirmisher, and he has moved, so it'll be hitting him on a 5 with all bows spells. He hits, roll to wound. Oh, unfortunately he gets a 2 again. However, the next one over here is going to roll. He will need a 3 because he is within 4 inches, but he has moved. So we'll roll to see what he gets. He hits, roll to see if he wounds. He doesn't as well, unfortunately, so my Skirmisher is fine. So my opponent has realised that unfortunately they can't use their crumble, because as much as it would potentially wound this model, it would also potentially wound these two and might even take the Barbarian out of the game. So I'm instead going to go straight into my Alchemy and my strong smoke discharger. So 3 inches, I can just get on top of my Skirmisher, and it goes off. So, although he's entangled, he is also now covered in thick smoke, which means that he cannot be charged for the rest of the turn, which I think has kind of destroyed my opponent's plans there. So my opponent has decided, start of their charge phase, or combat phase, the Apprentice is going to swing round into my Alchemist, which is fine, and it gets 1 attack, hitting on a 3, which does. It'll be wounding on a 5 or 6, because they're damage 3, resistance 4. It does, so I take a wound. And I get 1 attack back, hitting on a 3. Yep, which hits. And I also need a 5 or 6 to wound myself because of damage 2 for the staff. I don't, and I run away. So I'm actually going to go 2 inches around them like so. And go there. And they're going to roll their dice. And go 6, so it's up to them where they go. I have decided that my Alchemist is actually going to charge into my opponent's Barbarian, and they're going to do so by going this way, around and behind him. So they have 1 attack hitting on a 3, which doesn't hit. My opponent has 1 attack hitting on a 4, which also doesn't hit. They need to run away on a 4+, which they don't, so I get 1 attack, which hits. Doesn't wound, so they try and run away on a 4, which they don't. This is going to go on for a while. Try again to run away on a 4. There we go. So my opponent's now going to move away. And then I'm going to roll a 1. And I am going to go 1 inch that way. Now that we've reached the end of the combat phase, my opponent's Barbarian hasn't charged, nor has he reacted. So he must now see if there's a potential charge, which there is, so he's going to charge into the Alchemist. He'll have 1 attack again, hitting on a 4, which doesn't hit. I have 1 hitting on a 3, which does. And it doesn't wound him, but he's going to be the one running away because... No, actually no, tell a lie, it's going to be me. And it is me. So I am going to go 2 inches like so. My opponent is going to roll and go 5. Now we are at the end of turn 5, so I am going to take these away. We now come to turn 6, and I'm still the only one taking determination rolls, which I pass, thankfully. Turn 6 initiative phase, I've rolled a 3. My opponent's rolled a 5, so I'll be going second, and I'll get my 2 reaction tokens. After quite a lot of back and forth, my opponent and I have finished the movement phase. We can see that we have my dog over here. The Alchemist and Skirmisher have moved out over this way. My opponent's Barbarian and Apprentice have stayed up here. Marksperson and Barbarian stayed here. Their Alchemist moved out for a bit. The Marksperson over here stayed still, and right over the back of that building, my ex-soldier has just sort of moved up. My opponent, first of all, has decided that this model here is going to fire over at the Alchemist. He is within 12, but it is hard cover from the wall, so it's going to be on a 5. Okay, it's a 2, unfortunately. Next, my opponent's other Marksperson, who has stayed still, is going to fire into my Skirmisher. In that case, it is long distance, so it is going to be on a 4. Also a 2, that's not good. First bit of shooting for me is going to be this Skirmisher here is going to start throwing knives at the Barbarian. Now, because the Barbarian's only on a single wound, we are going to do the special rule that allows him to do these 1 at a time. They are going to also be on 2s because he is within 4 inches. There's no movement penalty for throwing weapons. So first one, it does hit. Doesn't take him out of the game. Second one, I'll re-roll that. It does hit. It doesn't take him out of the game. And the third and final one does hit. And that does take him out of the game, unfortunately. And then to top it off, my last bit of alchemy that I can do, I am going to use another one of these strong smoke dischargers and pass it, so this guy can now not be charged in the combat phase. Combat phase for this turn, we've actually checked this model is unable to charge this one because of the smoke discharger, and he's also out of range of these 2 as well. So we're at the end of turn 6, we're going to roll a dice and see if we go into turn 7. We do go into turn 7, so we will be back with you for that one. Turn 7, final turn, determination rolls first. My opponent is going to roll for their models. Rolls a 4, I'm going to roll for mine. I roll a 6, thankfully. Final turn, initiative phase. My opponent's going to roll first this time. Getting a 3. I get a 2, so I'm going second with 1 reaction token. End of turn 7's movement phase. My force is kind of just sort of Kind of taking up this corner over here. I still do have my ex-soldier over in the back, but we're not going to bother with him. My opponent's Apprentice has moved up this way. A Marksperson over here. Barbarian over here. Their Alchemist over here. And finally, their Marksperson is over here. So my opponent's Marksperson all the way over here is just by a couple of inches in range of my Skirmisher. So they're going to fire at them. There is no cover, but it is long range, so it'll be on a 4. That's a hit. Roll to wound. That is unfortunately not a wound. Now in this case, as I was going second, I've actually positioned myself behind my opponent's model. Even with that, they're still going to shoot at me. They are within 12, but they have moved, and their friendly model grants heavy or hard cover to me. So it is going to be a 6. Now if they roll a 5, 1 under the requirement, it's actually going to hit the Apprentice instead. So let's see what they roll. Okay, so it hits nobody, we're okay. Last bit of shooting for the turn. My Skirmisher over here is going to throw all of his knives into the Apprentice. So it's going to be hitting on 2s because there's no movement penalty and he's within 4 inches. So all of them hit. And I roll to see if I can get some wounds on him. Okay, actually I do get a critical because it's damage 3 and a regular. So last thing of the game, he is actually just going to be removed. So that is the end of the shooting phase. We also don't have a combat phase this turn because nobody is in range for combat. So I've gone around and checked. I have, my dog over here has 1 treasure token. My Skirmisher has 2. And my ex-soldier all over in the corner there has 1 as well. That gives me 4. My opponent has 1 on their Barbarian. So after a rather back and forth game, it is still a win for me. And that is the end of the game. So as you can see, we did count up the points, but again, my opponent had 1 treasure, I had 4, and these were the models that were left for both sides. I hope you all enjoyed this battle report. If you would like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. If you would like to get access to the rules, if you follow the link down below to Patreon, for £4 you can join the Novice tier, which will get you access to the rules, the community area, and a variety of tools and things to help you play the game. If you subscribe for £6 per month to the local hero tier, that will actually get you more things. It'll get you sneak previews, it'll get you access to rules earlier, and a variety of other things you wouldn't get in the other tiers. However, I will point out that hopefully your experience in the local hero tier will be a bit better than my local hero was this time. He did a bit, he didn't really do as well as he could. So as we can see, that if you've been following along, that's me and my opponent currently on 2 wins each. Next time we are going to have the Tiebreaker game, in which we will actually both be picking forces that we don't normally pick. So join us in a week's time to see what happens there and see who is the overall winner. See you next time.